Good morning, everybody. Put this in here. There we go. Good morning. We do a little mixREF. So I got a hose up front, and for some reason, Pinterest has this thing all glowing periodically. I think it's part of their stupid generative stuff that I have no need for. But let's see. So I'm gonna check and see what we have here. Front view. I'm gonna stick with yeah, let's go with that one. So one of these I like to do is a little mixed reference thing. It's kind of like a study project where basically I have a hose and then outfit to put on it. So let's get that. Make sure the head fits on there first, right? Go lower, huh? Make sure it fits, but for the head. Good morning. Good morning. Alright, that's good for the pose. Let's get the outfit roughed on here. Welcome. Let's see. Good morning. Let's see, where's my cool beefy, huh? Let's see. Reload. Nobody yet, huh? Good morning. Where is everybody? Let's see, up and over and down. Let's see. This is my morning warm up. I like to spend about an hour doing something. So part of what I'm studying is like a costume design. So I've got this outfit from Pinterest up. It's glowing at me. I think it's whatever their little analysis system is doing, which I don't really care about. And I'm taking a pose from a reference set that I bought or downloaded a long time ago, and kind of mixing the two together. So I'm putting the the look and the portrait of the person, sort of, onto this pose. Just something I think is helpful for me to practice, getting warmed up into the inking for the day. I have been working on the comic though. I storyboarded out the first issue yesterday, or thumbnailed out, however they call it, but got it all kind of thumbnailed out. So, curious to see how that goes. Yeah, so the first version of it, so I'll probably update it as I go. But I want to see what I needed for it. No, I can see it just fine. You know, I have like a soft stroke I'll do like this, and then I put the draft line on top. The other thing I'm doing is I'm experimenting with some other things. So I'm trying to get down solid enough here so that I come back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the going to put some what's it called, airbrush on there. I did test it, so it is working. But I got my little airbrush, which is a new tool for me this year. Well, I started using it last year a little bit, but I got busy with important family stuff. My father finally passed away from his cancer, and so, and then I was busy with some school things after that, and so I've been kind of working myself back into being online to a certain degree. But let's start with this. Just kind of play around with these colors, clean that out. But no, I can see just fine. There's so much air in there. So I'm trying to work myself, looking back at where my story was. Like I did an original draft of the story What was that? Oh, hair dryer fell off somehow. Why isn't it reaching the ink in there? But oh, it's my father. Sorry. Um, there we go. And he'd had it for a couple of years, but I finally succumbed to it over the in December, end of the last semester. So obviously had to go home and take care of all of those things. I was actually there just before he passed. So it was good, seeing him. I was there in the summer, and then I was there over the fall break, and then sorry about that. That's not working. Oh. I thought I'd use this already. Yeah, so I kind of had stopped working on my little comic project for a few months because of or a couple months because of important things going on like that. It was a long road for him, especially, and for my mom. She was going from 2 years of just really taking care of him to not having anything she has to do. I was a little bit more concerned about that transition for her than anything. Cleaning out my airbrush here a little bit for prepping another color. But anyway, put all my stuff on hold that I'm working on, and for all good reasons. Keeps falling on the floor. So, but yeah, so that's but yeah, all my little project been on hold, so I've been working myself back into getting back into it since coming back, and school starting. Got a new class I'm teaching this semester, so. Not too much. That's right. All right. Clean that up. try a little black ink in there. Come on, open. Ugh. You're so sticky. Close. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never actually done a comic before, and but I've been looking around at the kind of different things that are going on art-wise in the world, and a little splatter on there. That's right. That's what I forgot to grab at the art supply shop. Was some. That, clean that out, and then we'll ink it. But I think, yeah, I've been looking at kind of like the things I've been doing and the skill sets I have, and I was working on a new portfolio project for a while, and then kind of in the process of building that out, I've been thinking of stories. And I remembered something that Ian McCaig said, who's a great concept artist, that story really is a better way to kind of drive your concepts. I think it's not entirely true, but I think it's mostly true. I think it's a good idea to do that. And I'll do more in-depth cleaning of that later. But yeah, I think when you start just exploring, writing things down, right? So for me, I've been using something called the Dan Harmon Story Circle to plot it, which isn't quite the same as coming up with a script, but still helpful. Basically, it's an 8-step story kind of map that works as a circle, and you can find it on people talking. You can find him talking about it on YouTube. And the idea behind it is you kind of start at the top where it's you, and then there's a need, so something isn't right. So there's whatever you is your current situation, then there's a need, and you need to deal with that need. And it can be different things, but sometimes something isn't right. And then you go. So whatever that need is, you need to go, search, find, take, return, and change, and then back to you. So basically, you is your establishing who the character is, if something isn't right, and then you go, you make a decision to kind of deal with that need, and then you search. And often, most stories, a lot of the stories in the searching, where it's like you're running into all kinds of problems. It's your road of trials. And then eventually you find the thing that will deal with your need, and then you take it. And the taking of it often causes more problems than the original need did. So you take it, and you have to pay a big price. And then once you've kind of paid the price, then you return back to where you were before, but you've been changed. And so you kind of follow that around. It actually apparently works really well for episodic type content, where you kind of have to bring the characters back. And he used it extensively on some shows like Rick and Morty. Community was his other big show. And he talks about it that way. That it's it's not it's you can vary it, and you'll see people analyze films with it, and it's a helpful kind of frame for plotting out a story. It's not your final script, but it kind of shows you, gives you a map of the things your character or characters will go through. And so for every story, you could create a separate story circle for each character. You have like an overall one, but then you could have like one for each character. And kind of push it that way. Um, but it's similar like a 3-act structure, but this way you kind of have those 3 acts kind of set up for yourself. So I have one that I've written up for mine that encompasses the entire story, and I made a worksheet for myself too, so I could more easily um, deal with it. Um, I thought about making like my comic sheets and my worksheets available. Maybe put together a Gumroad or something. So I've been making some. I found just like looking around online, like a lot of the comic sheets, like they're not that precise in terms of their layout. The ones you might buy on Gumroad. So what my comic is about, it's set on an alien world that humans have colonized, and it's about 80 years after that initial colonization. And when they colonized, they were actually traveling as part of a fleet of international ships from Earth, and they arrive at this planet, and they discover this habitable planet looks like a giant ball or tangle of plants, like intertwining vines and weeds, but they're massive, like huge, large structures that are, bigger than buildings, woven together in this kind of natural appearing structure. And anyway, there's kind of evidence of a prior alien civilization there, but there's no biological matter. It's just architecture and artifacts that have been left behind that are kind of inscrutable. They don't know what they were for or how they worked, or the way that the structures are built. It's hard to tell how the aliens actually lived. And anyway, the humans, they're settled in this major settlement, and they're starting to kind of run low on supplies, and they from their original trip. So it's been a couple thousand years since they left Earth. No magical warp drives or anything here. But they anyway, when they arrived, a few of the ships kind of, or maybe more, crashed in other parts of the planet, and they haven't heard from them. And so occasionally they've sent out people to check out the wrecks and see if there's anything that they can scavenge and bring back to help the colony survive. So the story kind of catches up with one of those people, and he was on one of those trips when he was younger, and he's the only survivor, and it's kind of affected him in a lot of ways. And during the older trip, his father made him commit to keep a secret about something he kind of thinks he saw on the other ship that they were scavenging. He isn't quite sure what he saw, but he saw something. And so he's been living kind of with this secret for 20, 30 years, and it's affected him in a lot of different ways. So anyway, he's the colony's in a desperate situation. They need more supplies. They don't have them. They can't really eat what's on the planet. Yeah, to a certain degree, yeah, plants definitely a thing. So I'm trying to bring together a lot of my interests, and a little bit. So anyway, he's going to be he's sent out to go on kind of one final mission to find another one of these scavenger ships. A beacon has been set off all of a sudden from one of them, so they know where it is, or the beacon is, and he's supposed to go investigate the beacon, gather the information from it, and hopefully come back, or at least send that information back, even if he can't return. So it's kind of a one-way trip. And so he heads out and discovers the beacon, runs into a lot of local plant life, well, not plant life, animal life, dangerous places, explores some of the ruins that he gets chased into, and then he starts to bump into other things. I don't know what that one is. What's scavenger? But so yeah, anyway, he's kind of been sent out on this final mission, and what he kind of finds out there changes his view of the commitments he's made to himself, to his family, to his colony, and to his father, and kind of recontextualizes everything for him in a way that changes him and the future survival of the colony. So I've got like a wait list. I forget where it's at right now. I think you can find it in my link tree. So if I decide to do it as like a Kickstarter or something like that, you know, I can get on that wait list. Or I want to do is actually submit it to some comic publisher, starting with maybe Image. First, some people complain about Image like they don't promote you or something, which I mean I see them promoting stuff on social media, but they have like the best deal as far as maintaining your own copyright on your work. Oh, Scavenger, yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was funny. I was watching. I was like, because I started this little project before that came out, and I was like, oh, there's some interesting stuff in here. Some interesting alien life, and the effects it has on things. It does have one of my pet peeves. Whenever people put like robots in shows, like they always feel a need to make them human-like. And I get what happened in the show was a little bit different, but it's kind of one of my pet peeves with all these shows. Like, we have to make the robots human. I'm like, even if a robot achieved actual artificial intelligence, like real human level intelligence, I don't think it would think like a person. But they do that in shows all the time, making the robot into just another person in the show. So that's kind of one of my sci-fi pet peeves, especially these days with kind of seeing how generative AI works and all that. But yeah, I definitely saw that one. I felt bad for the captain. That guy went through the worst time. It's too bad they canceled. I was hoping they'd do more seasons, but they shut it down. They did do that other show, Common Side Effects, which is really good too. Which actually has been greenlit for more stuff. So that's a positive, I suppose, right? So, um, but yeah, uh, definitely a lot of creativity going on in there. Um, yeah, but I definitely like that one quite a bit. Both of those, some really good storytelling, character development, all the good stuff. Right? I really like this paper. Pretty, you can't get this paper in individual sheets, but they're kind of like a weird size, 22 by 30, which kind of gets you only 2 sheets if you're doing regular comic-sized paper. And I want to email them and ask about that. People are boring, right? That's already well established, right? Little ruler. The contradiction that maybe he's wrong about people being boring. The one thing I found is people don't find themselves boring. I mean, they might say they are, but they sure don't act like they believe for a minute that they're themselves lack interesting things going on. So we're not built for survival, right? Is what he's trying to say. That bare of tooth and claw. I think that's a Rudyard Kipling thing. I think. And it's like, what are we even doing? We're soft. And one of the things I've looked at with humans is we've kind of domesticated ourselves. So we've, along with domesticating other animals, we've also kind of done that to ourselves. And um, made ourselves soft, made it possible for the weak to survive. People that are out of shape like me. We don't die off and get left behind. I think it's encouraged. Um, yeah, my story. One of the major kind of points of the thing is like that everybody in the colony has been focused on for ever since they left Earth, being um, focused on the survival of the colony. Like every decision is made based around whether or not the colony survives, and that philosophy has led to a lot of abuse of that centralization of power, which of course that's what would happen. And because some pigs are more equal than other pigs. Yeah, well, it's like birds are jerks, right? You kind of read up on how birds live their lives, and you're like, oh, these guys are mean. Um, it's like most of the time when they're singing not because they're happy about the day, but they're saying, hey, this is mine, or hey, baby, or something like that. They're not really saying, it's a beautiful day with sunshine outside. They're saying, oh, this tree is my tree. Yeah, the other part of this thing is just like exploring inking technique for me. Um, it's like I can ink, I can draw with a pen, whatever, just fine. But I've been spending a lot more time thinking about, well, what does that translate to into an illustration where um, it's got to be consistent and it's got to communicate well for the project overall. It can't just be, a sketch like I would do normally with pens. Yeah, the guy who's like the dancing thing, right? Where there's the guy standing in the corner, nobody gets me. That's often kind of a teenage phase, right? Because when become a teenager, your brain does a couple of things. One, you have more life experience than you did obviously when you were a child, but you don't have a lot of life experience. And you haven't been made fully responsible for yourself yet. Right? You don't usually pay for your own life, and you might pay for certain things in your life, but you're not like paying for your shelter and your food for the most part. And but you're kind of aware of the hypocrisy in the world all the time. You look at your parents, you're like, well, why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z, or why are things the way they are? And you haven't learned really that there's larger reasons why things are the way they are, and why things aren't so-called fair. When you're like, well, why not just make it fair? It's like, well, one person's fair is another person's unfair. Or, like you say, one person's utopia is another person's hell. And there's a lot of conflicting interests out there in the world. That make life, challenging. It's like, well, if we just like, hit everybody with a think like me stick, then everything would be great. But what you'd find if you were put in charge is that you would have a lot of trouble making those decisions too. I remember there was like a really great Simpsons episode where all the nerds they get control of the city, and it's just one problem after another because they see a certain outcome as being desirable, while other people don't want that at all. There's plenty of things that people do that are objectively unhealthy or bad for their physical health or maybe their mental health, but that doesn't mean you can stop them from doing those things or should, because there may be for them valid reasons for doing those things. And to interfere may cause far more problems than just leaving things alone, um, because you don't necessarily understand the entirety of the situation. And you could be right too, but you just don't know. Um, and so yeah, a lot of teenagers kind of go through that phase where they're like, well, it should just be this way, and if I just made it this way, then it would be better for everybody objectively, right? Everybody should have X, Y, or Z thing and live a certain way or think a certain thing, and it's just always very kind of short-sighted. I don't just see it in young people. I've seen it in lots of people over the years. I have another one over here, but I'm going to move it so different angle on it. So you always have to be careful with those things because it's like, oh well, objectively, people should want this, and then what you find out is one person's objective is another person's subjective, and most of the time, what we perceive as objective is really isn't. It's like it would, maybe it would yield a certain kind of result, but um, subjectively, it may not be desirable for that person for how they want to do things. That's one of the problems with people looking at Gen AI as solving things because they think it's going to think certain things that it doesn't think, or solve problems that it doesn't actually solve. Um, but they kind of have a non-objective view of how it works, which is a problem. And kind of the effects it has, like we're like, well, obviously, if you can do things faster, you can make more stuff, and more stuff is better stuff, right? Except, Gen AI doesn't work the way people say it does. It's not smart. It doesn't think. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't, it doesn't rationalize anything. It just puts together what I call it's a token matching probability slot machine, and which is hardly representative of intelligence, as far as we understand human intelligence or other intelligence. Hello, Nemo. Welcome. Thank you for always commenting on my stuff. Yeah, it's reorganizing information based off of a probabilistic algorithm, which is why it's wrong a lot of the time. I don't really use it, but I bumped into it a couple times where, like when Google initiated their summaries, I was using Google to try and find a shortcut in Photoshop. It's one I knew existed, but I couldn't find it in the documentation or remember what it was exactly. And it's basically this thing where you can combine all layers into one, merge them. Screen is black. Did my head get in the way over there on Twitch? So it looks okay here. How do I do this? I have an overhead camera, and sometimes the way the camera is like if my head gets in the way, it blocks it off. Oh, your app is tweaking. All right, so user error again. That's all right. It's always good to know though, if there's some kind of problem, like what if I muted myself by accident, which has happened before. But what was I complaining about Gen AI? Yeah, but basically, I was looking for this information about this shortcut, and it was giving me the other one. So there's a shortcut where you can merge layers, that you've selected into a single layer, which is I already knew. It's Control E or Command E, depending on what your platform is. But I knew that already. But there's another one where it merges all the layers into a new one on top of all the original layers, so it keeps it. And the Gen AI summary was just wrong. Like it had the wrong information. It was not giving me what I was looking for at all. So I knew what I was looking for. And then another one that kind of happened by accident recently was a friend of mine sent me an image of a painting that his grandmother had bought in New York. Like it's just like a tourist style painting. And I did some photo editing to just kind of see if I could see the signature. It's really, really small, and it looked like it was, I could see the signature was in Russian, and I can speak Russian, not natively, but I still speak it, and so. So I knew it was done by a Russian. I knew it was done probably, early mid 20th century in New York. This information I had. I was like, well, maybe this artist has other work out there that I could find. So I drop it into what I thought was a Google image search, and it immediately ran its little AI on top of it. And the AI tells me it's from the 1650s and the Circle of Rembrandt. And I'm like, none of this is true. Like it sort of has that look. Click on yours. The app seems to glitch out. Yeah, I don't know. I can see it here. I'm gonna go. I'll also check on the Twitch page. I'm multi-streaming on YouTube and Twitch and Kick and DLive, so you can see it there. I don't see any issues over there. I'm gonna check over here on YouTube. YouTube is fine. But me. Video download was canceled. Okay, I don't care about downloading. Reload player. Maybe it's just Twitch glitching out. But yeah, I see it fine on YouTube. And let's see what's going on here with DLive. DLive is fine. Kick is fine. That's in Sharp. Drawings. Yeah, I think Twitch is just having problems. Barely have any followers on Twitch at all, so but yeah, but it's just wrong. And then I'll hear people tell me they love it for research or whatever, and I'll read these news stories about these lawyers using it to write briefs, right? Even someone for a judge, and it literally just makes up case law. Like there's no reason to use it at all because it just makes stuff up. Like because it's not thinking, it's not trying to find case law. It's trying to combine text information or visual information into probabilistically likely outcomes based off of how the tokens have been tagged and organized and linked. So it's not doesn't work. But I'll hear from professors that I work with. I teach at a university. That I love it for research and it gives me ideas and things like that. I'm like, yeah, but it's wrong. Like it's funny. A professor I know, he sends a lot of. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Twitch app is bad. It's me though. I am FPS. Okay, I see. But sometimes I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because people keep telling me like, "Oh, it's good for this, it's good for that," and I'm like, I can read objectively that there's been studies showing that it's not. And then there's newer ones coming out just showing the harm it does to your mind. It reduces your brain function, which should be obvious. If you're if you have a creative mind and you're part of what your creativity is coming up with ideas. If you outsource that creativity, that thinking, that imagination to a machine's output, you're just going to cause yourself all kinds of problems in the future. You won't be able to think. And that's definitely happening. Like people are not able to come up with thoughts or ideas in their workplace because they've outsourced it to these machines to think for them. And all it really does is demonstrate how little value you bring. when that occurs. It's like, well, what do I need you for? I've got a chatbot that'll do what you're doing for cheaper, sort of. Um, so there's that kind of whole issue. And I don't get really good answers off that. They're like, well, it's being used in the professional world or whatever. I'm like, maybe. Depends on the professionals you talk to. Now there's starting to be all kinds of disclosures. It's being banned from certain kinds of contests or what do they call that? Charts. I think it's been taken off of music charts recently. And which it should be, because it's not human-made work. It definitely should be disclosed when people are using it. Yeah, you're seeing all kinds of problems with other things too, like Windows has gotten objectively worse over the last few years, and especially over the last year. And they're excited about how much of the programming they're doing for Windows, and they had to do an emergency patch because the newest one had real problems, security issues, which you shouldn't have at all. If someone is actually making it and paying attention to what they're doing, and it's being verified through multiple sources, there should be no problems. But nobody ever checks with me on these things. Yeah, one of our professors, when he sends out emails to the department, he runs it through AI to make sure it's not offensive, which I find just kind of insane. And then students were telling me the other day in class that his emails feel like they are passive aggressive, which is also just kind of funny. But it's just it's like what are people doing to themselves? Like literally turning off their thoughts. But yeah, there's a lot of these artists who believe, especially the production artists or people that have only worked for other people and never had their own kind of projects. I've noticed that they really like AI, and a lot of it has to do with, I think, the fact that they've never done their own project. Maybe they've thought about it or considered it, but never pursued it, and they've always just served other people's projects. There's nothing wrong with doing that. You can have a whole career. I know people that all they want to do is work for Disney. That's like their dream, which is fine. It's not mine, but it's fine if that's what they want to do. But they believe that if they can put out more stuff more quickly for their clients, then that will be better for them financially. It'll be better for their clients because they can work faster. But it's kind of a lack of awareness of how creativity works. And one of the important parts, well, there's a couple of them. One of them, though, any kind of creative endeavor is something called the incubation phase, which is where all the things you've been experimenting with or researching, reading about, experiencing, they kind of have to sit in your brain for a while. You can't speed it up. You can probably slow it down, but you can't definitely not speed it up. And it can happen very quickly or very, very slowly, but it needs to kind of sit there for a while so that you can actually get some real insight from the things that you've been doing. And that makes the difference between a mediocre idea and a great one, is that kind of ability to sit back and consider what you're doing. And if you don't allow for that, then you're in for a world of hurt with understanding what you're doing. And that's one of the problems with AI is that it kind of gives you an instant result. So you go from having a thought to having a result. It's kind of a problem with photography to a certain degree too. But um, so that's kind of one area that's a problem. The other thing too is like media, the use of media is one of those delivery methods for ideas. So it's not just the image you put down, but the process of going through and making an image where ideas can emerge. And if you kind of set that aside for a final result, you lose out on the possibilities that can occur as you draw something. I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of this specifically, but kind of getting even just like the experience of playing with the splatters or the airbrush or the inking, whatever the subject may be, it's going to give you ideas about visual expression through the use of the media as it works its way into your system. It's actually a problem with digital art too, because one of the things with digital work is that it's all the same. So whether you're drawing with a pen or an airbrush, or a painting brush or something in the computer or your iPad, it all feels the same because you have, I have an iPad and I like it, and styluses and things. So like, this, no matter what you do with this, it's always the same. The contact with the surface is always the same, no matter what the brush is. And so it kind of disconnects you from the results you're getting. So like if I'm painting an airbrush this way, it feels a certain way when I'm drawing, right? If I'm using a pen, it feels the same way. Whereas, if I'm using, a real airbrush, or, a pen like this, which I actually like quite a bit. I'm not using it on this drawing, but I like this C3 calligraphy nib a lot. They feel entirely different. Whereas when I'm just using this, it always feels the same. And that kind of affects your ability to develop sensitivity to the work you're doing. So those are kind of some things to consider when you're working on things. But even with Gen AI, it removes all of that, and it just gives you a result, and you miss out on all of that other possibility, which is a real problem that I don't think people that support it have considered at all, and they should, because it affects their work, it affects their imagination, it affects everything that they do, and they're just kind of setting that aside in the name of, I guess, production. So let's get some heavier lines on there, where the white got overlapped on it. But I'm talking to people and they just don't get it. It's really bizarre. So it's not an attitude that I can understand, or I'm more worried actually that I do understand it than anything. Um, and they just clearly do not understand that point of view. But or maybe if they do, or maybe at a subconscious level they do, it kind of freaks them out to a certain degree, because it says things about them that they may not like. And I've had people tell me that it's more creative than they are, more productive. And like, productive in what sense? Like it makes more stuff? Is it good stuff though that it's making? Is it useful? Is it helpful? You know, does it make you better? And you know, that's always the issue. Anyway, I think that's good for the morning. It's been a little over an hour. That's a good little warm up. Move on to some other things today. And move along, right? So anyway, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. And talk to you all later.